Hello, and welcome to my Saturday afternoon with Dr. Ced. I'm your host, Dr. Cedric Wood. And I usually go over something that will help you have a better marriage or a better family, but I'm not going to go over anything specific today. But instead, today I'm going to take some time to go over the continued tragedies we are seeing here. In less than 4 weeks, we've had 5 shootings, mass shootings, 8 in the Carolinas, 10 in Denver, 5 in Southern California. Right here, a few days later, in North Texas, north of Dallas, we had 2 young men, 22 and his brother. They decided to take their own life, but they also decided to take mom and dad out, grandmother and sister, and then they took each other out. A tragedy of all tragedies. Their community is mourning deeply. And over, we keep hearing the same question through the years. And I heard it yet again yesterday about the most recent shooting, because we had another one where one person was killed here in Texas, way south of Dallas. I'm going to show you a video. I know you can't see it. I know this is ancient technology. If someone wants to help out, I welcome it. Every time I use modern digital editing equipment, it just doesn't work. I'm sorry. No matter how I try, it doesn't have clear instructions on how to edit the video. So I'm stuck just putting this VHS in, and I made this years ago. I was so proud of it. I've showed it in my seminars I've done on school shootings. And so I'm very proud to bring not only the beginning of this tape to you, but also the end of the tape are the news stories about all the recent shootings and what we're trying to do about them. I hope that this show, my Ced Talk, won't be too upsetting to you. If it is, then just turn it off and move on. But I hope you'll stick with me to the end, because I have a very important message for you and for the entire United States. Let's take a look at what's on my video, shall we? Let's see what it says.
Screaming and crying and telling them not to shoot me.
Paducah, Jonesboro, Columbine. Kids are dying at the hands of other kids.
It's hard to explain to high school students.
It's hard to explain.
Or elementary school students.
What's going on
What
here?
is it that makes kids turn into
What is it?
rampaging killers?
It makes kids.
Why are our children safe?
Is it the hate-filled video
The
games?
hate-filled music kids listen to.
The music? The movies? Is that what it is that's causing it?
Is it the violent movies they see these days?
Maybe that's it. Oh no.
The question about Columbine
What's the question?
has always been
What?
why.
Oh, why?
Why did the two,
Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold,
massacre 12 of their classmates
carry those guns in
Miller
there?
raises the question
I heard
of whether the
Dylan
government
Klebold's
should be
mother
trying harder
show up. I'm
to
so
learn
proud of her and impressed. She told us
In Littleton, Colorado,
why,
investigators
and what
are combing
happened.
through evidence, trying to put together the pieces of a horrendous crime.
Trying to put
But
together
one
the
piece
pieces.
will always be missing.
What's that?
They will never be able to talk.
Never
to
be
Dylan
able
Klebold
to
and
talk
Eric
to
Harris
the 2 young men,
understand what drove them to
to
kill.
understand what
But
drove
there are
them.
others who can shed at least some light on
There
this
are
dark
others.
event.
Why he did what he did.
Here's a young
was what
man
many people in Bethel could
who stayed
understand.
alive.
We asked Evan Ramsey that question.
Evan Ramsey, and he talked.
For the Surgeon
But
General
moving on,
to do an in-depth analysis.
in-depth analysis
Find out the why.
to find out the why. We don't understand this. Shooting spree. No one knows why.
What police and everyone else are looking for now
Looking.
is the reason. Violence that tore this
The reason the violence tore through
just weeks before graduation.
just weeks before graduation.
ABC News, Littleton, Colorado.
Now
He
what?
said with 2 of the gunmen dead, it may be harder to pinpoint the reason.
Pinpoint the reason why. Here we are in Fort Worth, right here in North Texas.
Plaguing question of why.
The plaguing question why
choose this
Mr.
church,
Ashbrook
come
would
into
choose this church
in a youth
and shoot these people in a prayer meeting.
questions that will be long in answering.
Well, it doesn't have to be long in answering.
We're still not a whole lot closer to answering the question of why.
We're not a lot closer.
To what creates this
What
mindset?
creates this mindset?
Why do our sons turn violent?
I talked to him at APA last year.
Human impulse to try and locate in the social environment some cause
Yeah.
of outrage like
Yeah.
this.
Right? Let's look for the...
Who told them that?
Well, one
Or
of these kids
who
is
told them
Jewish.
not to?
But they're always
The
going
parents?
to. They're always going to be sick kids. There's always going to be evil in the world. You can't. legislate
Always going to
against
be
that.
evil in the world. You can't legislate against that.
You can also say, what makes kids
What
sicker?
makes kids sicker?
What interesting and it's
Who
like
studies
they
that?
want people to commit
Architects?
these crimes, and in some
Car
cases,
mechanics?
even take their own lives.
Guess what? Psychologists study it every day.
Why?
Tonight in my special report,
Special
why
report.
are we seeing so much
Jane
deadly
McGarity.
violence?
Why are we seeing so much
many children
deadly
doing the killing?
violence?
And for all the pain those tapes
for
have
all
caused,
the
they never
pain.
really answered the
They never
question,
really
why
answered
the killers carried out
why
their
the
plot.
killers carried out their
Reported live from the
plot.
Satellite Center, Deborah Ferguson,
Everybody's
NBC
asking the
5,
same
Salt Lake.
question.
We have to look at ourselves. People look to experts like us for the answers. Anybody who looks within themselves will find the answer.
Well, okay, we'll skip over her and go on with the other news stories. Since everybody's asking the question why, and I'm not going to set myself up as a super expert, but I am going to set up the 1,000 to 2,000 psychologists who write research articles, book chapters, and entire books on child development and personality development and adolescent development and ego development. There are so many people who write parenting books or write a book. There's one right there, Licensing Parents. An entire book published. That's how much time and effort he put into understanding how important it is to license parents. So, am I getting close to understanding the reason why? Well, before I tell you, there's going to be other news stories from the last 4 weeks who kept saying, I won't play it out loud right now, still searching for the motive of why this young man would do this. Unbelievable tragedy the past few weeks. 8 dead massage therapists over in the Carolinas. 10 dead in Denver at a grocery store. 5 shot dead at an apartment complex in Southern California. And now, tragedy of all tragedies here in North Texas. 2 young men, about 22 years old, he and his brother, they decided to get guns and kill themselves. That's a good idea. Well, of course, I'm not making fun of that. It's tragic. What I was thinking is they decided to spare their parents the pain of embarrassment and guilt. So the right thing to do is to kill them so that they wouldn't have to feel bad when they found out they had committed suicide. Stopping school shootings. Let's talk to this father of a girl who was killed in Parkland, Florida. What a tragedy. What a tragedy in Parkland, Florida. And this family here in Allen, Texas, the Bangladesh community is mourning deeply because these 2 young men decided to kill lovely young lady, shot and killed, their parents, their grandmother, their sister, and then each other or themselves. Okay, what am I getting at? And then we have a young man just the other day, and as I was preparing to come do this video, I turned on the news, and they're interviewing. I'm very impressed. I think it's the sister, and she talked about mom and dad and how they're doing. I guess it was her brother who shot and killed somebody at his factory place, furniture place, I think, and then a bunch of others that looks like they're going to be okay. Why am I making this video? Because my mind is being boggled. Is this 1905 when Freud is just beginning, so we really don't understand how the human mind works very well? No. This is 2021. There are hundreds of research articles, book chapters, and entire books. My next video, I think I'm going to have them all on a shelf behind me. And what do they say? There's a connection between childhood experiences and teenage and young adult levels of depression, anxiety, suicidal tendencies, and homicidal thoughts. So there are millions of young people who are experiencing these traits. This is the Parkland shooter there. And we're leaning into these shootings by, number one, finding out what happened. That's fine. Then we start hearing the criminal justice people saying, we're going to bring justice to this young man. Well, okay, I have no problem with that. Go on. Well, we're going to start pushing for gun control and maybe age limits or type of apparatus, and Washington is stepping up to say we've got to push for gun control. Okay, we've heard that before, but the shootings keep happening. Why? It's because guns don't kill people, people kill people. Have I heard one person, now I'm not watching all the channels, okay? Not every channel, not 24 hours a day, but I do a lot. I always tune in and I watch what they have to say. I've not heard one psychologist be interviewed. I saw a young man who has a counseling group be interviewed about mental health, and it was a good little communication, little interview, and talk about keeping yourself mentally healthy. But the reporter never asked the question, Channel 5 here in Dallas, what causes the depression and the need to be violently aggressive to random people or to the very members of your own household? So I'm going to try to answer that question. Again, it's not because I'm brilliant and I've done research. I've read the research that psychologists have done. What does it say? Childhood environment. What's key in childhood environment? Well, if you haven't heard this phrase, you're going to hear it now. Attachment theory. How well attached was the child to the parent? There's 4 different kinds. John Bowlby wrote this up. One type is the good type, secure attachment. Isn't that great when parents interact with their children so that the child feels secure attachment? Kids with a secure attachment to mom and dad, feeling loved and valued. Thank you, Glenn Wilkerson out of Houston. His organization is ARC, Adults Relating to Kids, teaching parents and teachers how to help a child feel valued. No child who grows up feeling loved and safe and valued gets a gun and kills anyone. Are we getting at the answer to the problem? Kids, on the other hand, that don't grow up with secure attachment start to have problems. Depression, anxiety, thoughts of suicide because of low self-esteem. Here's somebody who killed her 2 kids, a young mother, walked into the police station and said, yep, I killed them. Why? I'm explaining why. Children who grow up without a solid, healthy relationship with mom and or dad will start having these symptoms and maybe go all the way to getting a gun and shooting strangers or even the people they love. Yes, the 2 young men up in Allen said, we love our family. Well, that's great. That means there were a lot of things that happened that made them feel loved or made them feel loved for. But there was a whole lot of things, no doubt, that led to a deep, flawed sense of self, out of which grows suicidal thoughts and homicidal behaviors. Now, I'm not only looking at the parents, I'm also looking at the environment, which is the parents' job to create an environment for kids that are safe. Are they being bullied at school? Parents need to step up, know about that, and do something about it. Child care workers, are they safe? Or are they abusing a child? Aunt, uncle, granddad, grandmother, cousin are oftentimes the abusers. And yet over and over again I hear the young girl who grows up and comes into my office here, or into the hospital, psychiatric hospital, where because they're depressed and anxious, maybe having suicidal thoughts, who say, I told my mother, and my mother, here's the interview, Channel 5, about what my uncle did to me, or my brother or my grandmother, and she said, don't ever bring that up again, that didn't happen. Okay, parents, when children tell you something happened to them, you sit up and you listen and ask questions. And if you have doubts, then keep those to yourself, please. Just keep asking questions. Stay open-minded, because that child needs you to believe them. Because the chances are what they're reporting is true. Don't go into ego defensive mode and say, well, that's too upsetting. I can't handle that information. No, that couldn't have happened. Your father, your grandfather, they're just wonderful people. How that would affect my relationship with these people. No, we can't have any of that. So these kinds of examples of poor parenting happen over and over, millions of times a year. And what happens? Well, mostly the depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts stay underground. We have adolescent units all over the country at psychiatric hospitals, and so they come in there and they talk about what's going on. Dad is so cruel. Mother is so distant. Dad's an alcoholic. Mother pops pills. Dad yells. Mother is always gone, selling real estate. You know, we hear the stories over and over and over again why these kids, why these young adults, even why these 50 and 60-year-olds are depressed and anxious. 99% of the time, they have their stories of childhood. 1% of the times, it's a head injury. And the terrible killing of the doctor, his wife, and the 2 grandchildren just the other day by the football player who then kills himself, that could be greatly created by the head injuries that he sustained as a professional football player. But that may not be the whole story, for sure. So where am I going with this? Mental health on NBC, DFW.com. Where does mental health come from? From a happy and healthy childhood. Where does mental ill health come from? Now we go to Channel 8 here. This is ABC. And they start off with the horrible news of another example of mass violence. I've been giving these seminars and talking about it to mostly mental health professionals. But here it is. Office shooting rampage. This is here in Texas. I'm so proud of that sister of this. Well, there's the doctor and his wife. News story after news story. And everyone says the same things. What was the motivation of this young? We have yet to figure out the motivation. A year and a half, the FBI looked into the motivation of the 63-year-old man who went to Las Vegas up into the hotel room and shot and killed during the concert 55 young people just having a good time at a concert. A year and a half later, well, the FBI has their findings. They reported that they never could figure out the motive of this man for doing this. Does the United States, have people never heard of psychologists who study child development? Again, personality development, ego development, adolescent development, human development. When you are abused. Now let me go over the whole list. My list is trouncil, T-R-A-U-N-C-I-L. Let me go over it real quickly. I wish I could show it up here on graphics. Trauma, rejection, abuse. The U stands for unloving, unkind, and unhealthy communication. The N stands for neglect. The C stands for chaos. So many changes, too much conflict. The I stands for indulgence. That's bad. And L stands for loss. Children make wonderful, secure attachments with grandmother or an uncle or an older sibling, and then that person dies or moves away, and they're left alone at home without anybody who really seems to like them. I had a young man sitting right here the other day. Nobody seems to like me. I get it in my office. I get it in the psychiatric unit. When is the entire population of the United States going to wake up and realize that that parent-child relationship is everything in that child's development? And when that child does not get that and grows up to be depressed and low self-esteem and suicidal and gets a gun, that's where it comes from the early years. Can I urge you to start caring about learning, parenting, number one, and number two, child development, and number three, it's called psychopathology development. Thank you, Dante Cicchetti, and your excellent work in developmental psychopathology. I asked a person as I graduated with my PhD, there were the other students there, and they were graduating with their PhD in child development. And I just turned and I said, now, how much do y'all cover developmental psychopathology? And she said, what? She didn't quite understand what I was saying, which maybe I'm wrong, but it told me they hadn't spent even a day in their PhD program in child development studying developmental psychopathology, where adult and teenage mental illness comes from poor development, of course. 90 mass murder at doctor's home. How long are we going to watch these until we mandate a parenting class in every high school? In Texas, let's start there, but the other 49 states are important too. Let's get a class in parenting, healthy relationships, healthy lifestyles, healthy child development in the other states as well, so that the child who graduates with their high school degree has some grounding in how to be a good parent when they get married and have children. Now I'm going to go one step further because it doesn't seem to be getting any traction. I don't know why. I don't know if there's just mass thing of, well, we don't want to hurt the parents' feelings. We don't want to hold them accountable because, you know, they're busy and they have their issues and they did the best they could. No more excuses. You've seen the signs. Enough is enough. Get parents to be held accountable. How do we do that? Something we do with every patient that comes into the psych hospital. We do a psychosocial history, which is a fancy way of saying we find out what happened to them during the previous 20 or 40 or 60 years of their life, to find out a little bit about why they're depressed and anxious and drinking every day and using drugs. Why are we not getting a psychosocial history on every criminal, every young person? They're all men, every young man who get a gun and decide to start shooting and then broadcast that psychosocial history. The privacy. We don't want to, these parents who evidently did a terrible job, we need to protect their privacy. It's not their fault after all. They're not the criminals. They didn't get the gun. They need to be, what was the young man? Dylan was his name. June 17th, I think, 2017. I've not heard one word from or about mom and dad. Something went terribly wrong in that young man's life to get a gun and go into a group of worshipers in a church. I think they were even studying the Bible and shoot and kill how many of them? He went to the court. Who showed up? Mom and dad? No, they really weren't that interested. His grandfather was. Good for him. His grandfather was there. Dylan Roof was his name. Caring about his wonderful grandson. And he spoke to the reporter and said, I guess we will never understand why he did what he did. Oh, Granddad, we know exactly why he did what he did. He did not get his childhood needs met from his mother and his father. I don't know how much more clear I can make it. If this is making me the bad guy, that I'm taking a stand, then you have to count all the other hundreds of psychologists and marriage and family therapists and counselors who know this. You have to hold them accountable as well. I don't know why they're not standing up and being more verbal. Maybe I'm doing something wrong here. Maybe I need to keep quiet too. Maybe I shouldn't be trying to save people's lives and save the suffering that goes on in people's lives. Because I guarantee every one of these shooters suffered and suffered and suffered. And I'm not even referring to the millions of adults who would never think to get a gun and kill anybody, who are suffering deeply with some level or type of mental illness, and it's because of mom and dad about 90% of the time. Maybe some other person in their life did the abusing and the traumatizing. Thank you for listening. I'm going to wrap it up now. Let's see what they're saying.
Background check. Our latest polling actually shows that 2/3 of Americans say gun reform should be a higher priority.
Gun reform. That's the answer.
Despite these horrific shootings, there is very little appetite from Republicans and even some Democrats on Capitol Hill to act on the kinds of changes that the president wants. David.
Mary Bruce, live at the White House tonight. Thank you, Mary. The other major news.
There it is. There it is. There's all the news stories. And I didn't even get them all in there. Please call your senator, your representative, and say we have to get mandatory classes in every high school in the country. And it'd be great if they'd be mandatory in college as well. But it'd be great if churches started classes. Many of them do. Community centers, many of them do. Other places where people gather. Let's get a parenting class or seminar on every other, block in the city. Okay, that's an overstatement. But there should be dozens throughout a city the size of Dallas or Austin or Houston. Dozens of programs talking about becoming a better parent. I'm tired of asking the question, where were the parents when this child was growing up, and where are the parents now that the child is clearly showing himself to be psychopathological, maldeveloped, and emotionally unwell, to quote Glenn Wilkerson. Let's find out why, and let's prevent it by finding out why and broadcasting this information regularly. Not only every time the shooting, we should have regular TV shows. 2 or 3 in the big cities and at least 1 in all the smaller markets, hosted by some local or state psychologist, mental health professional like myself, who's able to give useful information to the parents that are watching the program about how to behave. It was a golden era when there were 2 or 3 shows on years ago about, Nanny 901 and another one. Why can't we keep that? It should be funded by the government. I don't care if there's not enough money being made from advertisers, although I'd like to beg people with money to contribute towards a PBS show or to advertise. Don't worry about how many people you're reaching. Fund the show by paying for advertising so that the local TV stations can justify putting the program on the air every week. Thank you for tuning in. I'm feeling hopeful that if we band together with experts like Dr. Bruce Perry, who totally gets it, Dr. Colin Ross, who totally gets it, both from Texas, if we get together and approach the TV stations and the legislators, we can make a difference by getting this very important information into every home in America. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Dr. Cedric Wood.